Hey everyone, welcome to the podcast. On this podcast today, I interview Jack and Olivia Waller about their relationship. They're a fantastic young couple and they really open up about how they had feelings for each other as teenagers, how they handled that, how they got into a relationship, and they've done it a really unique way. They've done it a biblical way that's very different to how most people do relationships. They didn't sleep together before marriage, they didn't live together, they didn't do a lot of the ordinary things that people do these days. So it was fascinating to hear their story on why they chose to do their relationship in this unusual way. It's a beautiful story and I love it. Make sure you listen all the way to the end. Enjoy. Well, I have Jack and Olivia with me for today's podcast. Very exciting. I've known Jack and Olivia actually since they were kids or teenagers, and I was preaching at different camps they were at and things like that, and then they've come and joined our church a few years ago, so we spent a lot of time together. Olivia lived with my family for a little while, so we know each other well. They're 23 years old, yes, right, and been married for about 4 months. Yep. Exciting, very exciting. So we're going to talk today about your relationship. How did it start? How did you get to this point of marriage? How does your faith work into that? How did it go with family, friends, just everything? So looking forward to having you guys here.
Yeah, amazing. We're really looking forward to it too. It's crazy that you've asked us and we're sharing about our story and what's going on in our life, but we're excited to just share about us and how we got here, and that's going to be good.
Well, I really wanted to capture this because I think you guys have done a great job with your relationship. You know, it's not easy navigating romance, especially when you're young and, you know, you're just coming into adulthood, and then you kind of found each other and you've got married very young, you know, for what's, you know, the average age of Aussies getting married is about 34. So you got married very young. And so I think it's just really interesting, and I wanted to capture that in a podcast for all time. It can be there.
There you go.
So tell us kind of how you met and when you first kind of noticed each other and got feelings for each other, and how did it all begin?
Yeah, well, I'll go first because I obviously got feelings first. Like, if you look at Olivia, if you're watching the video, you can see how amazing and beautiful she is, so you understand why I liked her. But we met when we were 15 years old at Holes Gap on a youth camp run by this very church. I was living in a country town called Port Lincoln in South Australia, and we had some sort of connection with a church here in Melbourne. And so I came to every little youth conference and every little youth camp, and I'd go in with my little Bible with my dad to every little camp. And yeah, it was at 15 years old I met Olivia. You were actually praying over her and you know, saying all these incredible things about her. And for me, it was like, whoa, she's pretty, she loves God, she loves sport. What else could you want? So that's probably when I noticed Olivia the most.
It wasn't like a heavenly light glowing on her.
It was pretty close.
What do you want me to add there? I didn't have the initial, spark of interest in Jack at that moment. But what was really important for me over the next few years was the following year I went to boarding school, and I was pursuing sport there, and I moved away from my family home, and therefore kind of everything that was familiar, my family, my church, my youth group. And I had 2 years at boarding school where I was a little bit more removed from my faith and the church. I wouldn't say I was following God during those 2 years, and my faith became, I guess, decreasingly important to me in that time. However, Jack was kind of, would still kind of come to youth camps together over the next few years. And he was always a really great Christian friend to just fall back on and lean on. And I really appreciated, not that I knew he was interested in me, because it was always so clean and always felt like a really healthy friendship with Jack. I remember looking back and thinking, like, out of everyone, every guy I met, Christian or non-Christian, Jack was always just so pure with his motives and just never made a move or anything like that towards me during that time.
And just encouraged you to follow God.
Yeah, definitely.
Despite his feelings or, this could be something. It was just a clean kind of like, no, I'm just a good friend. I want to encourage you to keep following Jesus.
Yeah, well, a bit of a turning point for me. So I was in a previous relationship during my 2 years at boarding school, and getting towards the end of year 12, as everyone does, you have to kind of decide what's next in my adult life. And I was really struggling to answer that question. And Jack and I actually caught up. He was around in Melbourne, had come down from SA to a church conference, and so we caught up in the city, and we were just having a bit of a conversation about what's next, what happens after year 12, and Jack is just so passionate in everything he does, and so in answering the question, he was saying, I'm going to go and follow God and do a course and, be a disciple of Jesus and, figure out this world with my faith at the centre. And then he asked me in return, and, I was a bit like, I think I'll study, and I don't know, I might do sport, and, I wasn't really sure. And I came away from that really searching for direction, and it was really, Jack's constant faith that actually really inspired me and prompted me to pray again and really come and find God. And so then I moved down this way and started the course. Did you want to interject here, or?
So you just both came out of high school, and interesting, isn't it? So Jack was like, I'm going to do this course and learn how to, like a Bible college course with our church, and really learn how to follow God.
Yeah.
And you were coming out of year 12 like, I've kind of forgotten about God, don't know who he is, but I'll take a risk and maybe step back towards God and do this course and put uni on hold. So you came from really different angles out of school, which is interesting. But you both had the youth camps and knew the Bible stuff, and there was a background. Yeah. So it's interesting. So what happened from there?
Well, like Olivia said, I was really passionate and really wanted to follow God. I came from a family that didn't go to church, yet I would have these little interjections of camps that would give me so much fire and energy. But like Olivia did say, I didn't want to make my feelings known to her or to anyone. Like I really understood as a 15-year-old, you're not going to get in a relationship for life at 15, or it's going to be extremely rare. And I just wanted to wait. I really wanted to focus on putting God first in my life and put that at the centre, and everything else can come from that. I think there's a scripture in Matthew that says, seek first him and everything else will be done.
Where did that come from though? Because that's like really rare for like a 15-year-old to think, I won't chase this girl because, I can't really be in a proper relationship at 15. It's better to wait and see what happens. Like that's amazing.
Yeah, I think it probably comes from a place of my parents came from a divorce, and I really loved relationships and I really loved people, and I really wanted to do things right. And my dad spent a lot of years and my mum spent a lot of years in sowing that into me, do things right, do things well, be wholehearted in what you do. And I think from that point it was like, oh, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it properly and I'm going to do it right and I'm going to do it all in. So that was really the goal. As hard as that is, as a young adolescent in love or in adoration of this beautiful girl. Infatuated, that's right. Infatuated with Olivia. I'm going to put it aside and just focus on God. Amazing. So that was exactly what we did.
You couldn't really do that without a love for God. So it's like the greater love of God allowed you to kind of deal with this teenage love you had and put it second. Which is very rare because, a lot of teenagers, movies, Hollywood kind of encourages us, the minute you feel anything, chase it with all you've got and it will work out. You're like, it's kind of destiny, serendipity, it'll just happen and come together. But it doesn't, and we know it doesn't. So I think doing it that way, patient, slow, waiting, is amazing.
Yeah, it was really interesting. And don't get me wrong, I came in with expectations and hopes of what it would potentially look like once I'd moved to Melbourne and once I became an 18-year-old adult who could get into a relationship that could last forever.
Then she would fall in your arms.
Then it would just happen and, let it be done, God. But no, so
what happened in the course then? You were together, you're kind of thinking, oh, this is probably it. We're both in I've come from South Australia. She's come from country Victoria. We're in the same church.
Yep, exactly what I thought. Exactly what's going through my mind is, yes, we're friends. We're probably closest in the whole class. We're both following God, and it's just going to happen. It's just going to fall on our lap. And if anything, it was the opposite. I got to about 3/4 through the year, and circumstances really changed, and I really felt God say, again, put the relationship on hold, put the friendship on hold. And I did this dramatic thing where I actually didn't talk to Olivia for 6 months. Olivia, for certain reasons, exited out of the Bible college and the course. And I really felt in that moment God say to me and show to me that, continue to put me first and it will be done. So I had this vision and it was incredible, and
Wow.
it was really hard, and I was in tears that night, and then the next day I shared it with a pastor at the church and said, this is what's happened. I think I'm not going to talk to Olivia now. This is really, really hard for me. And he didn't know I liked it, but obviously could read between the lines. But yeah, I just said, I'm going to put this on hold for indefinite, and there was no point of like after 2 weeks, after 4 weeks, I'll talk to her again. It was like, I'm just going to let it all go and let that be okay. And I know that was a bit of a shock for Olivia, but she has her own story for her part of that as well, which I might just pass it on to her.
How did you handle that, Liv? Like, what was going on for you? So you stepped out of the course a bit prematurely. You wanted to come back though later, but like you're in a little bit of turmoil and your friendship stuff like with Jack and others changed. And so what's going on for you?
Yeah. Well, I had to just work through a lot of, I guess, maybe pain points and different things that I hadn't really resolved in myself about who I am and what I want in my life. And I think because I had a bit of a dramatic entry into the course, there was a lot of things that I wanted to work on. And I really wanted God to change my heart more than anything else. And I just didn't quite know how to do that. So I got to a point in the course where it just I wasn't really allowing God to change my heart, and I didn't really know why. And so when I exited, I really had a goal of pursuing not healthy guy friendships. And as much as I wanted to do that really well, I really felt to just go into a time of creating some really good healthy girl friendships. And so for that 6 months that Jack spoke about, I wasn't thinking about I'll put Jack on hold or anything like that. I had a word from God, and I really felt personally it was a season of just laying it down, a time to remove myself from the friendship with Jack so that I wasn't causing him any more grief, I suppose. But then I just really focused on female friendships and going through that process of figuring out again, if I really want to follow God and come in this dramatic way, like how do I do this, and how do I let him change my heart, and what does it require from me? And it just required a bit of self-reflection. I needed time to just journal and pray and read scripture and also invest in some really good friendships for a season.
It's interesting. I've noticed a lot of couples, I've been a pastor now for 15 years plus, and a lot of couples that end up having a really healthy relationship and really strong marriages will always have some kind of story like this, where there's a season they had to pull away from, guys pulling away from girls or girls from boys, and just like, rather than all this complexity of emotions, feelings, romance, boyfriends, girlfriends, that doesn't tend to result in a really healthy marriage with one person. There's often a time of pulling back, and God was really doing that in you, wasn't he? Like adjusting like my relationship with my friends, guy, girl, relationship, boys, how does that work? Like, romance, future marriage, like, okay, so really working all of that out, and there's a period of adjustment. And interesting, we're always in this period of adjustment. It's always about actually coming back to a relationship with God.
Definitely.
Which essentially, for people who aren't Christians or have that belief, it's about coming back to a deeper level of like, well, who am I? Why am I on this earth? What do I really believe? And actually getting that framework right. Because if you're going to enter into a romantic relationship, well, you got to know who you are. You got to know where you're going. You got to know what you believe.
Yeah.
It's often that big error people make in relationships is they step into them, but they're not sure. They haven't answered those questions well, and so then they get tossed to and fro, and they're back and forth, and they're, the other person has all this influence on them, or maybe they have all these walls up and they can't let the other person in, and it just makes for a messy, unhealthy relationship. So you both had little bits of that going on, didn't you, at that 18, 19, 20 kind of age, like adjustments? And,
Definitely.
But I think amazing because you both allowed that time to happen.
Yes.
And to step back.
Yeah.
A lot of young men would just push forward, pursue harder, tell Olivia you love her, and, hopefully sweep her off your feet, Or a lot of girls just go, oh, Jack's interested in me, awesome, like, I'll just take that and, I want someone to like me, and I want someone to talk to before I go to sleep at night, and it's nice to have a boyfriend. Everyone has a boyfriend. But you didn't. You went the other way. So I think it's amazing. So
yeah, we just never wanted that to be the case. I never wanted it to be that I did all these amazing things, so Olivia loved me, or Olivia did all these amazing things, so I loved her. We wanted it to be pure, and we wanted it to be true, and to really come from a whole place. So yeah, that's where we really came from. Would you like us to continue the story?
Next? What happened next?
Yeah, so after
You're not talking to each other.
Yeah. So
how do we get from there to marriage?
that's right. It's a bit of a jump. But yeah, so after about 6 months, we spent that time really just going deeper with God and deeper into our relationships with other friendships and other people. And it was about 6 months in, we went away together as a Bible college, and we went up to somewhere in Melbourne, and our relationship was kind of bubbling at the surface. You know, we couldn't continue to do a whole year of training together and not talk to each other. Yeah, but as well, I really saw a massive change in Olivia, and probably I think she saw a change in me too. So we came to this camp, and we actually just shared our stories. Okay, well, I didn't stop talking to you because I hated you. I stopped talking to you because I really felt like I needed to pursue other things. And Olivia shared that same thing. She shared a scripture with me, which was incredible and really touched my heart. It was Ecclesiastes 3:1 to about 10 or 11, about there's a time for everything. There's a time to let things go, and then there's a time to mend things as well. And it goes through that whole kind of story and passage about there's a time for this and a time for that, but God's going to make everything perfect in His time. Everything's beautiful in His timing, and that really touched my heart. And I think what I shared with Olivia touched her heart. So then a pure friendship really came from that point. I immediately went to you actually, Caleb, and I said, okay, I'm finally ready to tell someone, Caleb, I like Olivia, and I don't want to do this wrong. What do I do? You know, I don't want to stuff this up. I don't want to mess this up. I don't want to play with her heart, and I don't want to just be another person that kind of messes her around, but I want to do this right. And I think I'm ready for this. You know, I think I've gone through these steps and these hurdles where I've kind of shown, okay, I can be trustworthy. She can trust me, and I'm happy to continue to wait. So we waited, 9.
Well, hang on a sec on that one, because I think that's a great, step as well. Like, why come to me? Why come to someone older? Again, it's counterintuitive. To you, it's your story and it's familiar, but really, you look at like how people navigate romance, and like they don't often it's the opposite. Like when you like someone, you try and get them on their own because you just want to be with them exclusively. So it's actually not about others or community or friends or mentors. It's actually about how can I just be with them because I'm infatuated with them. Well, you went the opposite. You went, I don't want to go to Olivia with my infatuation. I want to go and get some mentoring and guidance. You know, why that move? Why was that important to you?
Yeah, good distinction. I wanted to win Olivia's heart. Like, I didn't want to play games, and I didn't want to pull her away and again point her towards me and me. But I wanted, with the advice of a person that I trusted and people that I trusted. You weren't the only person I went to at that time. But with the advice of, I guess I knew you would have Olivia's best interests at heart too. Yeah. I knew that you wouldn't say, oh, Jack, this is amazing for you. Do this, that, and the other, and you'll really win her and get it. Yeah. It's like, oh, well, no, I actually really care about Olivia too. And I care about you, Jack. So let's see how we can make this work. Little by little, sow your seeds, do what you need to do. You know, don't overdo it. Don't overstep. Don't pull her out alone. But little by little, you know, show her how much she means to you and how much you care for her. So I just really...
Were you aware, in doing that, were you kind of aware that you had the propensity to possibly stuff it up, or you were at risk of possibly getting it wrong?
For sure.
Because it sounds like that's what you were looking for. It's like... And that's great self-awareness to realise, like, if I just go hung with this and all in with Olivia, like I probably won't navigate it well. But if I get support, I can still maybe get there if she's interested in me, but I'm going to do it in a way that's best for everyone.
Yeah. Well, I'm no relationship pro. I saw you mentor countless people before me, and countless relationships you had a influence on and really supported people through. And I acknowledged that and saw that about you and said, oh, what Caleb has, I want that. Or what Caleb's teaching these people, I really trust by the fruit of what's come out of these relationships. Good. So I want a portion of that as well. And yeah, I guess that's my side of it up until that point.
Great. What about for you, Liv?
I think the other part of mentoring is it's actually quite biblical. What comes to mind is Mordecai and Esther. Esther, in preparing to go into the palace and her one night with the king, really sought the wisdom of Mordecai, who was a father figure in her life, and really relied on him to direct her in how can I best come into this next part of my life, this next phase, serving the king, falling in love, making sure or allowing him to fall in love with me as well. And I think wisdom is really important to get from others. And I think what Jack was saying too is mentorship we get in all areas of our life, in our culture today. This is something I've heard you say as well, and it's really always stood out to me. People get financial advisors, referees when you want to get a rental application, like we've just gone through, and different mentoring for emotions and counselling for things like that. And who are we to think we're experts in relationships and don't need that in that a very, very important part of our life as well. So yeah, I think that's why mentoring is really important to me too.
I think one of the big lies and misunderstanding with relationships is we're so people are so individualistic in their approach, and then when you feel strong feelings, romance feelings, like it just feels like you're the only one who can do that, and the individualism really overrides, and you think because you feel so strongly towards someone. And it's just such a misunderstanding, I think, and you guys have done a good job of because I know that's not easy, but you've had to put that aside as well, not just do it your way or your thoughts or your feelings, but to seek the advice of others and get the mentoring in what's probably the most critical thing, far more important than financial advice or, career guidance, or it's like love, marriage, and possibly, raising kids, family, and all the things that come out of that. It's like the most pain often comes out of divorce, and the most broken-hearted, deep, horrible feelings often come out of, love that falls apart, or relationships that are contaminated and turn into something difficult. And so I think again, great wisdom to pursue help in that area where a lot actually shun input, because they don't want to risk. I might not get, or I might not get the person, or I might not, I don't want anyone else interfering, rather than actually, I need help, we don't know, how do you do this? Really, really well done. So what happened next?
So I would be so bold to say that if we didn't have the time apart, the relationship may not have ever eventuated. So that was a time where I realised I actually really liked Jack romantically and more than just a friend. And I think taking a step back allowed me to have a different perspective on who he was as a friend. And that was when I really realised, he's really safe and he really loves God. And we're really good friends as well. And this has always been a really healthy friendship compared to some others that I'd had in my life. And so from there, Jack said he went to talk to you. I also went and talked to you. We didn't talk to each other, though. I think we didn't want to prematurely think that we were, even though now I've kind of caught up to Jack's level of feelings, we didn't want to prematurely think this is, we're ready. And I'd already realised in myself that I wanted to really grow my relationship with God, let him impact me, and want to follow him. And I felt like I still needed more time to do that. And that was kind of happening along this journey of I do like Jack, and I want to be able to honour him as a friend as well, and not rush anything, have patience, but then seek the counsel of others to, see if this could develop, and, if we do align in our values and beliefs and where we want to go in our lives as well, which I think is very important too. So we had another whole year of building a really good friendship in this secret place of liking each other, and then got to the end of the year. And
it's easy in hindsight, isn't it, to laugh about it? But at the time, you kind of, it was before I married Zoe, it's like, you kind of know there's probably something there because you get on so well, but you also don't know.
Yes.
You could easily be like, I actually like you, and then they're like, I never saw it like that. Like,
Yes.
you know, so it's easy to look back on and giggle at, but it's like, it's actually hard at the time. Because you're like...
I had no idea.
Yeah, you're not sure.
I went like that whole year of 2020, never even asking the question, I wonder if she likes me back.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
I might ask you like, oh, what do you think, Caleb? Or I had a best mate at the time. What do you think, like Hugh or whatever? But I would never like seriously think about it. And there'd be little things like, oh, we hugged for 3 seconds, you know, whoa, maybe she does like me, or, you know, or she wants to watch a movie with me. How cool's that? But then I'd see her catch up with another friend, and I'm like, oh, maybe this is just what she does. But yeah. So I got to the very end of the year, and I asked Olivia out, actually in your backyard. No one was home, so it was just Olivia and I. But I sat out in the backyard and you know, said to Olivia, hey, like, I actually really like you, and I've liked you for a really long time, and you've shown all these incredible things that I really like about you, but secretly loved about it. Wasn't going to say that just yet. But I like all these things really about you, and this is how I feel. And I started to put it all vulnerably on the table, and Olivia just said, thank you. Thanks for sharing that. I really appreciate it. There was one moment I will never forget, where she was like, I always wondered if you liked me too. And I was like, whoa, like, did you just say that? Can you go back a second and repeat that? And then, I guess that was the moment where Olivia said, okay, I kind of like you too, but didn't really admit it.
Yeah.
And just said, give me a couple of days to think about what you've just proposed to me, I guess, the idea of being in a relationship with you, which I was just like on a cloud nine. Olivia liked me? What? You know, is it now? Is it then? I don't know, but this is still great. Like, and then, I think she took 2 days and then came back and said, oh yeah, like I do really like you now, and I'd love to be in a relationship with you too, and let's do this thing right. Is there anything you wanted to add about those days of like considering or waiting, or?
I think for me, part of the factor was Jack had some plans to go overseas the following year, and we were just in a season of COVID as well, where we were literally locked in houses. And so for me, I really wanted to prayerfully consider, is this the right time? Jack's about to go overseas for 6-12 months. Then, you know, is long distance going to be good for us? Or just really considering. We are still young. We've got lots of time.
Because you guys were 20, 21?
Yeah, we were just 20.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah, so quite young.
Yeah.
So I just really wanted to consider, is this the right time for me, I suppose? And just really felt, you know, it's okay to give it a go. If it's long distance, maybe that could be a good thing and a beautiful part of our story. And it turned out that Jack didn't end up going overseas, so then we kind of worked through that as well. No one went overseas
for like 3 years.
That's right. That's right. But I think it was really special as well to know that even for myself, I really entered in prayerfully, even after months of liking each other and friendship. There was still a moment of, I guess, removing myself again, like we did in that 6 months, and saying, like, is there a new perspective I need, or is this gonna? There's
just so much restraint.
Yeah.
Like, as you hear your story, I don't know if you guys look back on it as well and go like, now that we're talking about it again, it's like there's just so much restraint, and, you know, like you said, Jack, I wanted to even let her know how I feel and propose a relationship, but it's, again, you're restrained, you're not telling the full story, like, I love you and I want to marry you, and it's like there's still, everything's measured. You know, there's a slowness to it, a thoroughness to it, a depth to it.
Yeah.
You know, which I think, and again, Olivia, like, I think it's just so unusual for a young girl to have a guy that she's interested in. It's like, I want to be in a relationship, and she's like, okay, I'll think about it. Like, it's just, I don't know if I've even heard of that. Like, it's usually like, what? This guy likes me. Like, yes, whatever you want, sex, move in together, like, get a dog. Like, this is amazing. I've been waiting for this, like this. And I think often, you know, people, because of the lack of identity, sometimes people allow the guy that's interested, you know, to give them their identity. So the minute that comes, it's like, this is a opportunity. I'm just going to give him everything and jump right in and just assume that love will conquer all, which rarely happens if it's not built, you know, properly. So where do we go from here? So she's kind of said yes to you, and even though there's a lot of restraint, it's very slow. And so how did you kind of move forward from there. There's been a lot of restraint, been a lot of slowness, been a lot of input.
Yep.
You know, did you just go, we're here now, let's do it? Or was there a way forward?
There was a little bit of celebrating. There was a little bit of like, woohoo, we did it.
She does like me.
Yeah, she does like me. We're there. You know, we told our families, we told our friends, we shared with everyone like that. And once that kind of faded away and everything was amazing and this is all great, and it was still amazing. But we went into that time of, okay, let's like think about what we want this to look like now that we can communicate our feelings, can communicate you know, everything that we're thinking and what we want for the future properly, considering the other person. Let's bring that together and let's mash that all up into one. How are we actually going to do this relationship? What does restraint look like in the relationship? We're going to start kissing straight away, or we're going to move in together, or what? How do we want to do this? And I guess, as we've talked about in our story, restraint was a really big part, and mentoring was a really big part too. We wanted input from the people around us, and we wanted to take things slow. We were 20 years old at the time, really, really young, and we didn't want to rush into moving in together or sleeping together or kissing straight away even, which might sound ridiculous to some people, but we just really wanted to do things right and not get caught up on the the tangible stuff in front of us, the physical, the emotional, whatever. And let's go little bit by little bit. Like, we've built an incredible friendship up to this point. What's the next step after friendship? How do we go a bit deeper into trusting each other?
Right.
And what does romancing each other look like? What does winning the other person's heart look like? And that was kind of what we put out all on the table. So I think we contacted you and your wife, Zoe, who we really, really love, and said, hey, can you guys help mentor us? And there was another couple in our church as well, who we just loved. We barely knew them, barely knew them. But every interaction we had with them up until that point, we were blown away by how much they loved each other. I think they were married for 5-6 years at the time, or 7 years at the time. But they were just so in love with each other. He would pull out her chair and he would kiss her, and he would really love her. And I was like, man, what they have, I want that. I want to be married for 7 years and still pull out your chair. I want to be married for 7 years and kiss you in front of everyone and don't really care what everyone thinks. And so we asked them, hey, can you guys help us? Like, can you mentor us? And they were young enough as well to like have that relevance to us, which was really important. We didn't want two 40-year-olds and 60-year-olds. We didn't want people...
I wasn't 40 at the time.
We didn't want people who were, super out of it, but close enough. And then we had some friendships as well, people who just got engaged or just got married, who did relationships similar to us, and kind of those points again about restraint and trust, and little bit by little bit, we saw what they did and just asked them a lot of questions.
And you really wanted to do it God's way. Well, that's the big thing that I remember, and hearing already how much you've taken things slowly and stuff. It's amazing how your relationship up to this point, I'm going to hear more about it, is so dictated by this higher concern of doing it God's way, which is a great act of faith. Your trust and faith in God, that He knows love. The Bible says God is love, so that He knows love, He knows romance. He has plans for men and women to be together and create families. And so I keep hearing this, belief sitting behind your relationship or behind your personal journeys, that, this higher love of God that's higher than love for each other, this higher faith in God rather than faith in each other or faith in other people, constantly dictates your relationship all the way along, doesn't it?
Definitely.
And so what is this kind of godly pathway, biblical pathway? Because a very, broad opinion, even in Christian circles, on how to do a romantic relationship. The Bible gives us lots of clues and lots of principles and values, but there's not one chapter in the Bible that says, when you're young and meet someone else, do this, do this, do this, do this. And as the Bible works, it's more of a story that's weaved through many different books. But there's principles that we can draw out of that to go, okay, these are kind of markers along the way for doing two young people doing a healthy relationship, and you've already touched on that a bit, Jack. So it's not, the Bible's pretty clear on, don't rush into physical, emotional depths without having a good friendship and actually knowing about each other and actually seeing if your values and your futures line up together. Like, there's some really obvious things, but not done very often. You
Yeah.
know, most Christian couples these days are sleeping together, are living together. You know, it's not very popular these days to wait until marriage to have sex or things like this, although these are pretty traditional 2,000-year-old Christian principles, but they're not very popular today.
Yeah.
Why did you guys choose this, what we call a narrow,
Path, yeah.
unpopular kind of way of doing a relationship?
Yeah, I think what comes to mind is that question that is often asked as a young person, like, where's the line in relationships? Where's the line that I shouldn't cross?
Yeah.
Like, when
What
is
should I, shouldn't do?
sex? Yeah, when
Yeah.
is relationships when do they go too far? I think we instead probably just wanted to make sure our relationship was holy. And there's a scripture that says, be holy as I am holy. And if we were to pursue a holy relationship, it means it's not going to be ordinary. We don't want to ask, where's the line, where's too far? But we just wanted to, in everything that we do, be really prayerful and make sure, like Jack said, it's just one next step and then the next step.
Yeah.
And then the next step. So we had about 2.5 year relationship, and we the way we'll always probably retell it is we had a different focus areas in our relationship. So for the first part, we just really wanted to build upon our friendship and see how we could be together as friends, but in a relationship. And, you know, I think we both entered in with the hope that one day in the future we would be married as well. We didn't want to just mess around or have a casual relationship.
Yeah.
But we wanted it to go somewhere. We had a common goal of, you know, we really want relationships really significant for us.
There's no deceit in there at the beginning.
That's right.
There's no like, I'm saying maybe we could get married, but I'm really just checking out, and so I'm holding myself back and protecting, and there's no using or any of that. I think that's really important.
Yeah, that's
going
right.
into this open-hearted. If it works, it works, and I'm going to go the full commitment to marriage.
Yeah.
If it doesn't work, I'm going to say that, and not just enjoy the benefits of a relationship while starting to look elsewhere. You know, I think that's clean motives like that's so important.
I think that was the first part. Again, that was just figuring out, is this going to work? Like, we obviously really like each other, but are we kind of going the same direction?
Right.
Do we have similar values and interests? And can we talk for, hours and, still
communicate? All
that's right. Figuring all of that out. We had a few arguments along the way, and I think that was kind of when we reflected on, I'm bringing something very different to the table than what you're bringing, just because of past experiences and our childhood experiences as well, both coming from divorced parents and families. And I think just kind of recognizing that all of that stuff was now on the table. But we didn't share everything either. So that was really just kind of a lot of figuring out in ourselves, is this working, coming together, is this working? And then the next part of our relationship was really where we wanted to learn to trust each other. And by that point is where we really wanted to share, this is my past experience with boys, my relationship, my parents, who I think I am and where I think I'm going. And then in turn, Jack, would share as well. And
So some people might say that, not sharing everything at the start is deceitful or is not authentic. So explain to us how you are fully in and fully open at the beginning, but then there is actually things that you waited 6-12 months to really share deeper thoughts, or, there's hurts, pains from your past, childhood, whatever. Why not just spill that on the first day? Like, why not just tell, Jack the first time you liked each other and went out for a coffee, just, here's my full life story. Because I think that's interesting. Why hold some of that back, yet you don't see that as inauthentic? You more see it as like just, it is authentic, but it's just the right thing at the right time, building in time.
Yeah. Well, everyone has a story, and it's big stuff. Like, you don't want to just share that with everyone and everywhere and overshare in circumstances. Like, there's a level of vulnerability and, romance almost in sharing everything. Like, you're letting your heart fully out and saying, hey, here's all of me, but you don't give all of yourself to someone straight away.
What do you think the problem is when people, and have you seen that in other relationships, if people give everything up front, all the story, all the physical, all the emotional, You know, what's the risk with that you've noticed?
Well, you could totally get hurt if you're laying yourself all out on the line straight away. You know, you might be misused, that's where mistrust really comes from, and I think, you know, when you let it all out on the line, you can be whacked for that as well. And I needed to be able to trust Olivia with the little things before I could trust her with the big things. I think so. When you let it all go too early, I think you get a real hard heart. You know, your heart gets harder towards, I let it all out here, but you didn't hold that well enough.
And relationships often don't work. So I think it's great, again, wisdom from you guys. You're not assuming, well, we like each other, so this will work.
Yeah.
You're assuming we like each other, we could build something, but I'm also not going to lock Jack in or lock Olivia into, you know, a future together. So therefore you don't want to, you know, share everything, put everything out there. It doesn't work. You feel hurt, you feel disappointed, you know. A lot of people do a few relationships like that, and then all of a sudden by their late 20s, they're very jaded, they're very self-protective,
right.
they don't trust men, they're like, all of a sudden they're quite stuck and can't really, you know, do proper love because they've been hurt and messed it up a few times. I think you guys put yourself in a great position that if this hadn't have worked, you could have gone on to the next romantic relationship and been a pretty healthy person.
Yeah.
Not a kind of jaded, that last girlfriend I had, you know, really took me for a ride.
Yeah, really hurt me, really, you know, I really abused my trust and used me and that kind of thing. And I think that was the distinction from the start to the end was, you know, when I'm figuring out, and Olivia and I do get an argument or do have a disagreement, or she said something that really hits me a bit weird, instead of going to her and saying, oh, that hits me weird because X, Y, and Z, it's like, well, let me reflect on myself first.
Yeah.
Let me talk to my own mentors and the people who know me a bit deeper to help it figure out with there. But then when it came to this point of, okay, I think I've built enough trust with Olivia to share with her why, you know, this thing that she said in this moment has hurt me, that's when I can come to you and talk to her. And that period of trusting each other, that took a long time. That was probably the longest part of our relationship, you know, building trust.
It didn't come easy, quick, did it for you guys?
Yeah, it wasn't like...
It doesn't for many people.
Yeah, it wasn't like we've done a friendship really well, so I can just tell you everything straight away. It was
Were you surprised by that? Did you think it would be a bit easier to get into the deeper stuff? You did?
Yeah, I was ready to let it all out. It wasn't until maybe 6...
Because you were kind of coming into a relationship thinking like, this is working, this might be 6 months, we're married kind of thing.
Totally, which would have been crazy.
Yeah.
But I totally came in because I saw God's hand over it all.
Yeah.
I saw how he brought us to Melbourne. I saw how this restraint and these visions and these scriptures and everything that we prayed about really came to this culmination of a relationship. So I thought the battle was won to begin with.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until, you know, halfway 9 months in where we kept on, you know, bumping heads and, hey, why isn't this working? This should just, you know, fit, you know, this circle, this should just fit in the hole and make sense. But it wasn't working. And I didn't know Olivia as much as I thought I knew her.
Yes.
And that's not in a bad way. It's not like she was hiding anything like you said, but it was like, oh, there's a deeper side of her that I'm yet to unravel and unravel, and she's yet to share with me. Yeah. She wants to protect herself and share in the right timing and awaken that love as it comes in the appropriate time. And yeah, it was about 6 to 9 months in, I was talking to you. I can remember it so distinctly. We were walking around your house and you were like, mate, slow down. Like, you know, you're not marrying her tomorrow. Like, just slow down and just go a little bit. Sometimes you just got to let things go. Sometimes, you know, if you're arguing and whatever, you don't need to figure it all out in that moment. That was really hard for me because anytime something came up, I was like, we need to deal with this because we need to get to 6 months or 12 months and be married and have kids and live this amazing life, everything that I've dreamed of. But it was like, just sometimes you just got to let things go. And then, you know, 12 months, 24 months, you know, later, you guys can deal with this stuff more appropriately when you're trained to deal with that, when you've learned how to protect each other and share with each other in a pure way. So, I think that was a big
What was going on for you, Liv, in that trust time?
I really remember feeling from Jack that he deserved me. And, you know, he's like you were sharing, like he's already won me and he's liked me since 15. And so therefore, we're here. Yeah, we made it. And the start of our relationship, it felt like in his mind was, this is it. And as much as I think it's, like I said, it's important, we came into the relationship hoping we would go somewhere. It kind of was a little bit too much in a way. And it took us a bit of a reset to come to the point of realising we still have so long to go. And I think what was really important from that point is that our relationship had a lot of intentionality about pursuing each other's hearts really slowly, and just taking the time to get to know each other, pray with each other. It became a really important part of our relationship. And we actually had, just so that we could still focus on our own friendships and our own personal prayer times, we actually had, after the reset, at about 9 months, we had 2 days a week where we weren't talking or texting or anything like that. Again, just to remove ourselves and create this space to see, again, is this gonna work? And
that stuff's really hard, and I've worked with a bunch of couples that have done things like that. But what I love about it, even though it's really hard to have a day you don't talk to each other, it's a great way to just say, here's something practical, like we're not going to text on Wednesday, that just says we're not married.
Yes.
Well, I think couples find that hard.
That.
I'm just amazed how quickly young people want to like play house.
Yep.
It's like, let's set up a house and let's be like married people and let's get a dog. And it's like, you don't know each other.
Yep.
And you just, because you got feelings, it doesn't mean like you know how to be a husband or you know what it is to, be a woman and married to a man. And like, I just think it's very much this shallow level of let's just play house.
Yep.
But I like that stuff because it's really hard. And I know I did
Really
stuff
hard.
like that when Zoe and I were dating and getting together. But it's like it says we're not married and it says we don't 100% belong to each other. We haven't stood before God and a congregation and taken vows. It's like, so we're going to have a day where we don't talk because we're still building towards something. We're not fully in physically, emotionally, text messages, everything. We're not quite there yet. So I think, again, really well done, because I know that stuff's really hard. It takes a lot of maturity to go, let's put these things in our week that, niggle us and annoy us. But it's saying that we're going somewhere rather than saying we've arrived.
Yes.
We're now the perfect couple, which is great.
I just wanted to make like one real quick distinction. Everyone probably heard it, but it was really important to understand the why behind we were doing these things. It wasn't like, let's just spend days apart because we've already done all this restraint and we've already put things aside, or we shouldn't we shouldn't kiss and we shouldn't sleep together. We need to understand why we were actually doing.
Because you weren't doing any of it because I said
that's exactly
or
right.
the Bible said.
Yep.
You were really doing it because you wanted to believe in it and you wanted to understand it as a greater truth, a greater way of doing a relationship.
There was a point where, it was a bit of a trust the process, trust your mentors, but then I think the greatest depth in our relationship and the greatest, triumphs were when we understood why we were doing it and then got through it. And we push boundaries and we cross lines and all those things and we come back and forward and back and forward. You kind of, it's not this
it wasn't
simple,
perfect.
upward trend.
Because I remember there was a few times you said, we really wanted to do this and we want to treat each other like this, and then you didn't do that and you were like, we're really disappointed and oops and so let's come back to our initial goals and reset and so I think that's important to state because some people might listen and go, well, it seems like it was all pretty just perfect and
no way and sometimes it was follow it, but then you cross that and then it was like, then let's understand why.
Great.
Why and that's the big point I just wanted to make really clear.
It's really good, really, really good. So the trust bits, you've done this kind of early bit where you're kind of a little bit standoffish, but you're in a relationship, getting to know each other. Now you've done this bit where you're like, we're going to trust each other fully. So it's kind of like this handing over of here's kind of my life, the good, the bad, the ugly, my future, blah, blah, blah. And then how did that shift into more of a we're really falling in love? I think we're going to get engaged and married. How did that kind of next phase happen?
Maybe you can speak to it better than me, but the next part of our relationship was really about the romance and really letting our feelings for each other be expressed. So up until that point, about 1.5 years or 2 years into our relationship, we hadn't said I love you yet. 2 years. Because we wanted it to be really significant and really know that it was kind of like a point of no return, I suppose.
It's a line you were crossing.
Yes. And once we've said that and we've shared about our past and our pains and everything about ourselves is on the table, then we know if he says he loves me, and if we cross this next point, then we're in. And I know I'm fully known and I'm fully loved.
Beautiful.
And so then that was a real beautiful season.
So saying I love you to each other sounds like it was much more than just a feeling.
Yes,
Like
definitely.
it meant all of this building and all the restraint and the slowness. And
Mm-hmm.
So you guys both knew it was a bit of a line of no return because love wasn't just an emotion.
Yeah.
It was a deeper kind of commitment.
Yeah, it was a bit of a cultivation of everything that we'd built until
That's
that
right.
point,
Yeah,
which was lovely. And so then we expressed our love for each other in many crazy dates. We spent so much money, hot air balloons,
saying I love
and literally dinners and beautiful notes and cards and gifts towards each other. And it was
Amazing.
all just a great expression of our love for each other, why we love each other, how it came to be. Jack shared a few pictures with me that he had visions from God throughout our friendship that he'd held in his heart all the way until that point.
Yeah, wow.
And they were really, really special to get to that.
So he swept you off your feet
swept me off
eventually.
my feet, yeah.
Yeah, if we're talking about the progress and, the up, down, up, down, up, down, this was the point where it just went right to the roof,
Yeah.
right to the roof. And it was like everything all at once. And it was only a few months. Like it wasn't like this 6 months to a year of, date to date.
Wouldn't have had
to
the
date.
money.
No.
Enough money for
We're
that.
22, 21. Like how the heck would have we done that? But yeah, it was a few months of just like, let's do everything. Let's make it all known. And the restraint is kind of gone now, and let's really show each other. There was still levels of restraint, but it was like, wow, I really, really love you, and wow, let me show you in all these incredible ways. And it led to an incredible engagement. I think I did a very good job. A full day.
She said yes.
Well, she said yes. So we're here now. So, and that was the point where we got engaged and started planning the wedding from that point. We got engaged May of 2023, and then were married by September of 2023.
Right.
So it's about 5 months, I think, is the math.
And with your wedding, I mean, it's only a few months ago, but you really, again, thought through like what you wanted your wedding day to kind of say to people, how you wanted it to reflect your relationship. You didn't just, a lot of people get married, it's just a party. It's just really like, we've lived together for 7 years, I suppose we should get married, or, for some people it's still, they feel like getting married is the step before having children. So we've lived together, or we've been basically married, but now that we want to have a child, we should formally commit. But it wasn't that for you guys. Like, what did you see the wedding day as in your relationship journey?
Do you want this one, or do you want? Yeah, the wedding was the culmination of this friendship and relationship up until that point. It was, everything expressed to this one day where we could say in front of all our friends, all our family, all the people that are important to us, this is the commitment we're making before you all, to love each other for the rest of our lives, to, stick it through the hard and push through and navigate that, because we trust we can get there. And we really wanted our story to be on display as well, of this trust and restraint, and God makes everything perfect in His timing. Although it's, it's crazy to say, it was really, really hard, because we feel so lucky to be married so young. There was points that was really hard, and we wanted to kind of say like, yes, we pushed through it and we persevered and we got to this point. So, and we really wanted everyone to see that and everyone to witness that. So we had a massive wedding, in my opinion. We had over 200 people invited, and we fed them all and drank them all and celebrated all together. And really shared this story with them and this commitment with them in front of God and in front of our church. And
you had a very strong, God element. He was really at the center of it. Like, what were you trying to kind of express there with your belief in Jesus?
Yeah. And again, through our whole relationship, God came first. God was core, and that He was that higher power dictating, I guess, it all, and really directing us. So we wanted to say again, for the rest of our lives, we're going to keep it that way. We're not going to make it about us now. We're not going to do everything in our own strength and by our own decisions, because we've done the hard yards. It's God, you're going to continue to come first in our relationship. We'll continue to die to ourselves and sacrifice what we want for what you want, God, and that was really important as well. So we wanted you to be a part of that, and you to really share, Christ and share the gospel and share that element of our relationship as well on the day. Do you have anything else to add?
Yeah, I think for us, marriage was a really important marker in our covenant with one another. So our agreement to love each other for the rest of our lives, put each other first, have security in that as well. I think a lot of relationships, particularly de facto relationships, there may always be the question, you know, are we still going? Is it not? And whilst I know that divorce is rife, I think the stat is something like 50%.
More than 50%.
Yeah. It still meant, just had so much weight for us. And so the wedding day was the marker of the start of our marriage, our lifelong commitment. Our vows were heavy, but really meant something to us, and that's what we really wanted. And I think that's how it differentiates from, you know, just a party or just a day or just tons of money on some beautiful flowers and beautiful dress. Is it carried a lot of weight for us, because after the wedding day we started living together and had sex, and, you know, what we really believed in to be the start of our marriage.
And what was it like moving into the marriage phase? You know, like there's been from teenage years, and then there's, you know, building up, and, you know, it's a beautiful relationship. But as you shared, like there was definitely ups and downs. So how's it been moving into actually being married, living together, that next phase?
Well, everything's perfect, and end of story. That's, you know, what's the next question?
So you haven't had one problem since you've been married?
0 problems. I'm perfect. This is great. We made it. It's done. It's over. Like I mentioned before, you know, now
so you don't leave clothes on the ground?
Never done that before in my life. Olivia would be an idiot if she didn't know this side of me. But anyway, I'll let Olivia answer.
I'll answer properly. No, like it has been a bit of an adjustment, but I think in the best way, it's really realising that our lives are now one. We've come together and we've become one. And so there's so much potential for what's to come. And we've had conversations about what we want to do in ministry. At the moment, we're both leading the youth group. So we're starting to ask, where's that going to go? Where do we see our future in the church? Where do we see our family? When do we want to have kids? And, you know, where's our state of residence? Where do we want to live? All of those questions that are all possibilities suddenly become more of a reality. And so, we're really just, we're only 4 months in, so we're really just at the early stages of what's next now that we're one and together, and really want to live our lives out to the best that God has for us. And, you know, what does that look like for us?
What's the best bit of being married? You know, because you weren't living together before, you hadn't had that stuff before. So what's best on this side of married?
It's a good question. It's all really lovely. I think my favourite part has been really just residing together. So being together, being in each other's space a lot more, and really just sharing the everyday parts of your life,
the ordinary,
and your work. It's literally the ordinary. That's one of my favourites.
Because when you do a relationship your way, the biblical way, like you don't even get the simplicity of, you know, driving in the same car, or like, you know, seeing each other at the end of the day, because you're in different houses, and there's still a lot of logistical moving around, and then also leading into a big wedding like yours, there's a lot of months of organisation, and that's not normal life. That's definitely extraordinary. And now it's like everyone's gone and the wedding cake's eaten, and like it's just the two of you in your ordinary little rental property, you know, getting up for work and that. Which I think is beautiful, and that's, you know, I've been married for 13 years, and that's still probably the best bit as well. You know, because life is, you know, 98% of the time pretty mundane, pretty much just eating and sleeping and that. But to do that with the person you love in your own little house, and for us with our 4 kids, that's actually what is extraordinary. It's so special that it's your family, your people. That's really well said. It's good. What about you?
I can't really add much more. Just it feels like a new level's kind of unlocked. Like, you know, like exactly what we said. Residing together, living together, and enjoying everything together is just, it's so much different. But it is so amazing. I hated driving home every night after seeing Olivia for hours, and you know that dreadful drive home of only a few more months now. But now it's like, oh yes, like, do you want to go to bed? Do you want to go to sleep? Do you want to play a board game? And do you want to talk about your day? And I love actually hearing about Olivia's day, you know, every day, and hearing what she's done and what's important to her. It's this whole new element to her again that I'm just unlocking and seeing for, you know, I saw it in part before, and it's not like we didn't have these conversations before, we didn't talk about the future before, but there's just a greater depth and a greater awareness and a greater thoughtfulness behind everything that we ask and do together when we are together. There's a lot of free time together.
Yeah.
You have a lot of time to, like, we don't have kids yet. We both have jobs and study, but behind that, you're just together. Yeah. So juggling that of how do we make the most of this time and what things can we do together that's going to be really enjoyable and that we'll remember forever. It's been really cool.
In a spiritual sense, do you feel different? Because when you come to that, and you touched on it before with your wedding day, when you come to that wedding day and you take what we call a covenant, so you're like swearing, vowing to each other before God, before your friends and family, that, till death do us part. You make very strong commitments leading into the marriage, but that wedding day is like the pinnacle of that. Like it's life and death.
Yep.
It's rich and poor, sickness and in health. We could go through the most difficult, hard, horrible things in life, but we're committing to stick together. Yes. And not just to each other, we're committing to God, to stick, like God's watching this. Yep. So do you feel like, have you noticed that level of commitment, shift as you get married? Do you feel that spiritual joining?
You feel way closer. Okay. And you do feel like, no matter what, we're going to be with each other and in here for each other and supporting each other. And I guess when you're dating, there's that element of, I can check out at any point. Although you don't want to, and you really like, and you learn that, you build that resilience. Now the resilience is there. It's like, I'm with you forever. So it does feel really different. And we've seen a lot of our friends go through who have just been married, go through those struggles and really navigate really difficult parts of life. And it's like, wow, they've done it, it's us as well. We're here through thick and thin. Yeah. So it does feel really, really different to me, beautiful. At least.
Yeah, I think just what I was saying before, all of the things that were possibilities and potentials, they just come alive a little bit more. Yeah. And I feel like that's really God kind of beginning to direct our steps now that we're together, and it's kind of like another line that we've crossed, just to see what comes next. I definitely feel a difference in just looking ahead and knowing it's us now, and what God's going to do with us is different to what He could have done with me alone, and that really excites me.
It's beautiful. Well done, and I really appreciate you sharing with me and everyone who's listening. You've been vulnerable, you've shared your life, your story, and really, really appreciate that. And thank you for your humility, because an amazing, beautiful story, but you've also shared it in a way that's really relatable and everything like that. And I know that your heart's desire is only that other people, especially young people, can know that there's a way to follow God and do a relationship that's really healthy, not necessarily easy, but healthy, and doesn't need to be confusing, and hard and difficult. There's a way to do it, which I think's come through really strongly.
Yeah, we did it in a really different way to what the culture does and what other people do, and it's not right or wrong, but we just would love to, obviously, like you've said, inspire young people who are asking these questions, and there's so much more to the story, unbelievably, even though we've gone for like an hour, I could definitely say more, but we really want to be like you were to us, and how Justin and Lucy, our mentors, were to us. We want to help other people and support other people through those difficulties, if anyone ever wants. We want to touch life. So
thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
I trust you were impacted by that Leadership Lessons podcast. I would love to hear your thoughts about today's podcast. Please comment down below, and please review the podcast and share it with a friend. Doing this inspires us and helps others to find the podcast. See you next time.